The old Zephyrian walked slowly through the dark halls of the ancient library. His name was Velthar, and he had spent 50 years of his life studying old stories that most people thought were lies. The blue scales on his arms glowed softly in the dim light as he carried a heavy book to his desk. The book was very old. Its pages were made from a special metal that would never break or fade. Inside were stories about creatures called the Sol Phantoms. Most Zephyrians laughed when they heard these stories. They said the Sol Phantoms were just made-up tales to scare children. But Velthar believed the stories were real. The Sol Phantoms came from a star called Sol, far away from any known world. The old book said they looked almost like Zephyrians, but their skin was soft and pink instead of blue and scaly. They had only 2 arms and 2 legs and no tail. The strangest thing about them was their eyes. The book said Sol Phantom eyes could show many feelings at once. According to the stories, the Sol Phantoms were very dangerous. They could survive in places where other beings would die. They fought wars that lasted for years and never gave up. They built machines that could fly between the stars. Worst of all, they could not be reasoned with when they were angry. Velthar opened the book and read the same words he had read 1,000 times before. They sail the void in vessels of metal and fire. They speak in the language of numbers and death. When the Sol Phantoms come, worlds burn and stars go dark. But there were other stories too. Stories that said the Sol Phantoms could also heal the sick and build wonderful things. Some tales spoke of Sol Phantom music that could make people cry with joy. Others described their art, which showed both terrible wars and beautiful peace. Velthar had always wondered why the stories were so different from each other. Were the Sol Phantoms evil destroyers or creative builders? Maybe they were both. Far away from the Zephyrian library, on a blue and green world called Earth, Commander Lisa Green stood on the bridge of her ship. The ship was called the UNS Dakota, and it was one of 12 human vessels preparing for a long journey. Lisa looked at the star charts on her screen. The automated probe had returned from deep space 3 months ago with amazing news. It had found signs of many alien civilizations in a distant part of the galaxy. The probe's computers had detected radio signals, energy signatures, and even what looked like massive cities on several worlds. This was humanity's first real chance to meet aliens. Earth had been sending messages into space for over 100 years, but no one had ever answered. Now they knew why. The aliens were so far away that it would take years to reach them, even with humanity's fastest ships. Admiral Jake Morris had chosen Lisa to lead the advanced scouts. Her job was to make peaceful contact with any aliens they found. The other 11 ships carried diplomats, scientists, doctors, and cultural experts. Everyone hoped this would be humanity's first step toward joining a larger galactic community. Lisa thought about her crew. They were good people who had trained for this mission for 2 years. Dr. Peter Walsh was their language expert. He had studied every human language and created computer programs that could learn new ones quickly. Dr. Kate Johnson knew more about alien communication than anyone else on Earth, even though she had never actually met an alien. Ambassador Helen Carter was in charge of all diplomatic contact. She had helped write the protocols for meeting alien species. The rules were simple: be peaceful, be respectful, and try to understand their culture before making any agreements. The ships were ready. Each one carried gifts from Earth: music, art, literature, and scientific knowledge. They also carried detailed information about human history, both the good parts and the bad parts. The mission planners had decided that honesty was the best way to build trust with aliens. On the industrial world of Corvanis, Zeklon finished his shift in the deep mines. He was tired and covered in dust, but something he had found that day kept bothering him. Deep in Tunnel 7, the drilling machines had uncovered a chamber filled with strange crystals. The crystals were unlike anything Zeklon had seen in 30 years of mining. They were perfectly clear and shaped like 6-pointed stars. When he held a light near them, they glowed with a soft blue color that reminded him of something he could not remember. Zeklon had taken one crystal to show his supervisor. The supervisor had looked worried and told Zeklon to seal the chamber until experts could examine it. But Zeklon kept thinking about the crystal. Its shape and color seemed familiar, like something from an old story his grandmother had told him when he was young. That night, Zeklon went to the public library in the mining town. He searched through old books until he found what he was looking for. There, in a collection of ancient myths, was a drawing that made his blood run cold. The drawing showed creatures called Sol Phantoms holding crystals exactly like the one he had found. The book said the crystals were left behind wherever the Sol Phantoms had traveled. They were proof that the mythical beings had once visited a world. Zeklon ran home and sent an emergency message to the planetary government. He told them about the crystals and what the old books said they meant. Within hours, military ships were heading toward Corvanis. Commander Thexara received the report while her battle fleet was on patrol near the edge of Corvanis space. She had heard the Sol Phantom stories when she was a cadet, but like most military officers, she had dismissed them as superstition. But if the stories were true, her people might be in terrible danger. The old book said the Sol Phantoms always returned to worlds where they had left their crystals. They came back in great fleets that could destroy entire civilizations. Thexara ordered her ships to increase their sensor scans of deep space. If the Sol Phantoms were really coming back, she wanted to be ready for them. Far away, the 12 human ships finished their final preparations. Admiral Jake Morris gave the order to begin the jump to hyperspace. The ships disappeared in flashes of light, beginning a journey that would take them across the galaxy to meet beings who had spent 3,000 years telling stories about them. Neither the humans nor the aliens knew that their myths and reality were about to collide in ways that would change both civilizations forever. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like 12 shooting stars against the black of space. Captain Amy Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UNS Liberty, watching the sensor screens fill with data about this new region of the galaxy. Scan. Results coming in, Captain, reported Lieutenant Danny Pierce from the communication station. We're detecting multiple artificial structures and energy signatures consistent with advanced civilization. Amy nodded. This was what they had hoped to find. After 3 weeks of travel through hyperspace, they had finally reached the coordinates provided by Earth's deep space probe. The mission was beginning. Begin broadcasting our peaceful contact protocols immediately, Amy ordered. Full spectrum, transmission with mathematical constants, universal peace symbols, and music from Earth. The Liberty's powerful transmitters began sending humanity's carefully prepared first contact message into space. The signal included prime numbers, pictures showing human anatomy and Earth's solar system, samples of human music, and a simple, pictograph message that said, "We come in peace from the third planet of the star soul." 8 light hours away, Captain Kilves was running a routine patrol with his squadron of Zephyrian defense ships. The 6 vessels were checking the outer boundary of their territory when their communication systems suddenly filled with strange signals. "Captain," called his sensor operator, "I'm receiving unknown transmissions from the edge of our space. The signals are very strong and coming from multiple sources." Kilves looked at the data scrolling across his screens. The transmissions were unlike anything in their database. The signals used primitive radio waves instead of the harmonic frequency communications that all civilized species used. Even stranger, the messages contained mathematical sequences and what looked like crude pictures. "Could be equipment malfunction. From one of our deep space stations," Kilves said. "Record everything and send a copy to command. We'll investigate the source." But when his ships changed course toward the signals, their sensors detected something that made Kilves's blood freeze. 12 large objects were moving through space in a perfect formation. They were too big to be asteroids and too organized to be debris, sir, his sensor operator said with a shaking voice. "Those objects appear to be artificial, ship-like structures with active power sources and propulsion systems." Kilves stared at the display. 12 unknown vessels had appeared at the edge of Zephyrian space, broadcasting strange signals that contained mathematics and pictures. It was exactly what the old Sol Phantom legends said would happen. On the UNS Dakota, Dr. Peter Walsh was working frantically to decode the alien response signals that had started arriving an hour after they began broadcasting. The alien transmissions were completely different from anything humans had imagined. "It's not radio waves," Dr. Peter explained to Commander Lisa Green. "They're using some kind of harmonic frequency system. The signals create patterns that are almost musical." Dr. Kate Johnson joined them at the communication station. She had been studying the alien signals with her specialized equipment. "I think their entire language might be based on musical tones and frequencies," she said. "Look at these patterns. They repeat in mathematical sequences, just like musical scales." Lisa watched the two scientists work together to understand the alien communication. This was exactly why Earth had sent experts on this mission. Making contact with aliens would require more than just translation. They needed to understand how the aliens thought and communicated. "Can you create a response using their frequency system?" Lisa asked. Dr. Peter nodded. "We can try. If we convert our mathematical constants into their harmonic patterns, they might understand that we're trying to communicate." On the Zephyrian homeworld, High Counselor Murthak stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council. Representatives from 7 allied species sat around the circular chamber, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. "The reports are confirmed," Murthak announced. 12 unknown vessels have appeared at the edge of our space. They match the descriptions from the Sol Phantom legends in every detail. The council chamber erupted in worried voices. Some representatives called for immediate military action. Others demanded more information before making any decisions. Velthar rose slowly from his seat in the observer section. As the galaxy's leading expert on Sol Phantom mythology, he had been invited to provide historical context. "Honored council members," Velthar began, "I have studied the Sol Phantom legends for 50 years. These vessels match every prophecy. They travel in groups of 12. They broadcast mathematical messages. They appear at the edge of space without warning." A Corvanis representative stood up. "The mining crews on our industrial world have found Sol Phantom crystals in the deep tunnels. The ancient sites are becoming active again. This cannot be a coincidence." War Chief Krathel of the Hegemony. Military forces pounded his armored fist on the table. "The legends are clear about what happens next. The Sol Phantoms will demand tribute. If we refuse, they will destroy our worlds. We must strike first while their numbers are small." But Velthar raised a hand for attention. "The legends also speak of a test period. The Sol Phantoms will try to communicate before taking hostile action. Perhaps we should attempt to understand their intentions." The debate continued for hours. Some council members wanted to assemble the combined fleet of all 7 species. Others thought they should try to communicate with the mysterious visitors. Finally, High Counselor Murthak called for order. "We will attempt limited contact while keeping our military forces ready. If these are truly the Sol Phantoms of legend, we must be prepared for anything." Back on the UNS Liberty, Ambassador Helen Carter reviewed the first successful communication exchange with the aliens. Dr. Peter and Dr. Kate had managed to establish a basic mathematical dialogue using the harmonic frequency system. The aliens had responded to their mathematical constants with their own number sequences. More importantly, they had answered questions about safe meeting locations and peaceful intentions. The alien responses seemed cautious, but not hostile. "They've agreed to a meeting," Helen told Captain Amy. "There's a neutral space station about 6 hours from here. They'll send a small delegation if we do the same." Amy considered the options. This was the moment they had trained for. "Who do you want to take with you?" "Dr. Peter for translation, Dr. Kate for communication support, and I think we should bring Colonel Steve Adams for security," Helen replied. The aliens seemed nervous about something. Having a military representative might help show that we're taking this seriously. Amy approved the plan. Within 3 hours, a small human shuttle was traveling toward the alien space station. The shuttle carried humanity's first diplomatic team and their hopes for peaceful contact with an alien civilization. As the shuttle approached the station, Helen looked out the window at the massive alien structure. It was beautiful and strange, built from materials that seemed to shift color in the starlight. She wondered what the aliens looked like and whether the stories they told about humans were as strange as the stories humans told about aliens. Behind them, the 12 human ships waited in formation. Each ship carried hundreds of people who had dedicated their lives to this moment. Scientists, diplomats, doctors, and engineers, all hoping that this first meeting would begin a new age of cooperation between species. They had no idea that the aliens were gathering their own fleets, preparing for what they believed might be the return of the most dangerous beings in galactic history. The myths and legends of both civilizations were about to meet reality, and nobody knew what would happen next. The meeting room on Space Station Keftor was designed for diplomatic encounters between different species. The walls could adjust their color and temperature, and the air mixture could be changed to accommodate various biological needs. But nothing had prepared the station's staff for this meeting. Ambassador Helen Carter walked into the room, followed by Dr. Peter Walsh and Colonel Steve Adams. The three humans looked around at the most amazing sight they had ever seen. 7 different alien species sat around a curved table, their various forms creating a display of biological diversity that took Helen's breath away. The Zephyrians were tall and blue-scaled, with large eyes that seemed to glow softly. The Corvanis delegation was shorter and stockier, their skin a rocky gray color that matched their industrial world. There were species with tentacles instead of arms, others with multiple eyes, and some that seemed to be made of living crystal. But what struck Helen most was the atmosphere in the room. The aliens were not just curious or nervous, they were afraid. High Counselor Mirthak stood up slowly. His blue scales had turned a darker color, which Dr. Peters' briefings had said indicated stress among Zephyrians. "We welcome the representatives of the Sol system," Mirthak said through the translation device. His voice carried harmonics that the human equipment converted into words. "We have waited 3,000 years for your return." Helen felt confused. "Return? I'm sorry, but this is humanity's first contact with your civilization. We've never been to this part of the galaxy before." The alien delegates looked at each other with what appeared to be surprise and concern. Velthar, the old Zephyrian researcher, leaned forward. "The legends speak of your people visiting our worlds long ago," Velthar said carefully. "The stories describe beings who match your appearance exactly. 2 arms, 2 legs, soft skin, and eyes that show emotions." Dr. Peter activated his portable computer and displayed images of human history. "Our species has only been capable of interstellar travel for about 50 years, he explained. "Before that, we were limited to our home planet and local solar system." But as he showed pictures of human technological development, several alien delegates made sounds of distress. One of the Corvanis representatives actually left the room. Colonel Steve Adams noticed the reaction. "Is there something wrong with our historical data?" Velthar pulled out an ancient electronic tablet and showed them images from the Sol Phantom legends. The humans stared in shock. The pictures showed beings that looked exactly like humans, but the artwork was clearly thousands of years old. "These images are from our oldest historical records," Velthar explained. "They show the Sol Phantoms during their first visits to our galaxy. The legends say they came in great fleets and established outposts on several worlds." Helen studied the ancient pictures. Some showed humans in what looked like early spacesuits exploring alien planets. Others depicted humans and aliens working together on construction projects. But there were also images of battles and destroyed cities. "The early stories speak of cooperation and trade," Velthar continued. "But the later legends tell of terrible wars. The Sol Phantoms became aggressive and territorial. Many worlds were damaged before they finally left our galaxy." Dr. Peter was taking notes frantically. This was the most amazing discovery in human history, but it also created a huge problem. If humans had really visited this galaxy thousands of years ago, what had happened to those early explorers? "We have no records of any previous contact with your species," Helen said honestly. "If humans were here in the past, that knowledge was lost long ago on our world." The meeting continued for several hours. Helen shared human art, music, and literature with the alien delegates. She was surprised to see that many pieces seemed familiar to them. When Dr. Peter played a recording of classical Earth music, several aliens showed signs of recognition. "The song speech," whispered one of the crystal-based life forms. "The legends say the Sol Phantoms could speak through pure harmony." Dr. Ruth Bennett, the mission's chief anthropologist, had joined the meeting by video link from the UNS Dakota. She presented carefully prepared information about human culture and history. "We want to be completely honest about our species," Dr. Ruth said. Humans have a history of both cooperation and conflict. We've fought wars, but we've also created art, music, and science. We've made mistakes, but we've learned from them. When she mentioned human wars, several more delegates became visibly upset. War Chief Krathel stood up suddenly. The legends speak of soul phantom wars that lasted for generations, he said in a harsh tone. Your species fights until entire worlds are destroyed. How can we trust beings who glorify violence? Colonel Steve stepped forward. We don't glorify violence. We study our history, including the bad parts, so we can do better in the future. Yes, humans have fought wars, but we've also built hospitals, schools, and art museums. We've created music that brings people joy and medicine that saves lives. Helen decided to take a risk. I'd like to show you something that might help you understand modern humanity. She activated her portable player and began showing a compilation of human achievement. The video showed doctors saving lives, teachers helping children, scientists making discoveries, and artists creating beautiful works. It also showed humans working together to solve problems and help each other during disasters. The alien delegates watched in silence. The images didn't match their ancient legends of destructive warriors. These humans seemed compassionate and cooperative. Dr. Peter added historical context. The humans you see here represent our species today. If our ancestors really did visit your galaxy thousands of years ago, they would have been very different from us. Human culture and values have changed dramatically over time. Velthar studied the modern human data carefully. The ancient texts speak of soul phantoms who could show great kindness or terrible cruelty. Perhaps your species has chosen to emphasize the better aspects of your nature. The meeting ended with agreement to continue diplomatic contact. The aliens would report back to their governments, and the humans would share more information about their civilization. As Helen and her team returned to their shuttle, she felt both excited and worried. They had made successful contact with 7 alien species, which was more than they had dared hope for. But the existence of ancient human legends in alien culture raised questions that would take years to answer. On the UNS Dakota, Admiral Jake Morris received the full report of the meeting. The news that humans might have visited this galaxy in the past was shocking, but the successful diplomatic contact was encouraging. What's our next step? Lisa Green asked. We continue building. Trust, Jake replied. These aliens are afraid of us because of old stories. We need to show them who we really are through our actions, not just our words. Back on Space Station Keftor, the alien delegates held their own meeting after the humans left. The discussion was heated and full of disagreement. They seem different from the legends, admitted one delegate. Or they're very good at hiding their true nature, replied another. Velthar had been quiet during most of the debate, but finally he spoke up. I've spent my life studying the soul phantom legends. These humans match the physical descriptions perfectly, but their behavior is not what the stories predicted. Perhaps the myths are incomplete, or perhaps these really are different humans from the ones our ancestors knew. War Chief Krathel remained suspicious. The legends warn us to be careful during the testing period. The soul phantoms will appear peaceful at first, then show their true nature when they have learned our weaknesses. The debate continued through the night as both species tried to understand what this first contact would mean for their civilizations. Ancient myths were colliding with present reality, and nobody was sure what truth would emerge from the collision. The emergency signal came in the middle of the night. Ship time. Captain Lisa Green was awakened by the urgent beeping of her communication system. She sat up in her bed and activated the message screen, expecting routine updates from Earth or the other ships in their fleet. Instead, she saw the worried face of Captain Kilves, the Zephyrian officer who had first detected their arrival. Captain Green, Kilves said through the translation system, we need help. There's been a terrible accident on Corvanis. Thousands of people are trapped underground, and we don't have the right equipment to save them. Lisa was fully awake. Now, what kind of accident? Mining disaster in the deep tunnels. Toxic gas leak. Our rescue teams can't reach the trapped workers because the gas will kill them in minutes. We've lost contact with over 8,000 people. Lisa looked at the fear in the alien captain's eyes. This was exactly the kind of situation that could define the relationship between humans and these alien civilizations. Send us all the data you have. We'll see what we can do. Within an hour, the UNS Dakota and 5 support ships were racing toward the industrial world of Corvanis. Admiral Jake Morris had approved the rescue mission immediately when he heard about the crisis. "This is our chance to show them who we really are," Jake told his senior officers during the emergency briefing. "The aliens are scared of us because of old stories. Let's give them a new story to remember." Dr. Kevin Murphy, the fleet's chief medical officer, was already preparing for what they might find on Corvanis. He had studied alien biology during the journey from Earth, but this would be his first chance to actually treat alien patients. "We don't know how their bodies will react to human medical technology," Dr. Kevin explained to his team. "We'll have to work with their doctors and learn as we go." Marine Sergeant Tim Clark was organizing the rescue equipment. His team specialized in dangerous extractions and emergency operations. "The good news is that humans are small enough to fit in tunnels that their equipment can't access," he told his Marines. "The bad news is that we'll be working in a toxic environment that could kill us if our protective gear fails." When the human ships arrived at Corvanis, the scale of the disaster became clear. The entire mining complex was surrounded by emergency vehicles and rescue teams. Alien workers and their families crowded around the entrance to the underground city, waiting for news of their loved ones. Zek Lon, the mining supervisor who had first discovered the Sol Phantom crystals, met the human rescue teams at the main entrance. His rocky gray skin was covered in dust and his large eyes showed the strain of 3 days without sleep. "The gas leak started in Tunnel 7, Zek Lon explained. "The same tunnel where we found the crystals you showed us in your legends. The toxic gas spread through the ventilation system and trapped thousands of workers in the lower levels." Lisa looked at the readouts from the alien monitoring equipment. The gas concentrations were deadly to most known life forms. Even with protective suits, the alien rescue teams could only work for a few minutes before they had to retreat. "What about human physiology?" Dr. Kevin asked. "Can we survive longer in those conditions?" Dr. Ruth Bennett, who had studied alien biology, checked her portable computer. "Based on what we know about their respiratory systems, humans might be able to work longer in the toxic environment. Our lungs process gases differently, and our protective equipment is designed for more extreme conditions." Sergeant Tim Clark was already putting on his rescue gear. "Only one way to find out. Let's go save some lives." The first human rescue team descended into the underground city wearing full environmental suits and carrying emergency medical equipment. The tunnels were dark and filled with the toxic gas that had leaked from the mining operations. Tim's team quickly discovered that the alien rescue equipment was too large for many of the collapsed tunnels. But humans could crawl through spaces that the bigger alien rescue workers couldn't access. "I've got survivors in Section 12, Tim reported over his radio. "They're alive but suffering from gas poisoning. I need medical support down here." Dr. Kevin and his medical team descended into the tunnels carrying portable treatment equipment. Working alongside Corvanis doctors, they began treating the gas poisoning victims. It was slow and dangerous work, but they were saving lives. The rescue operation continued for 3 days. Human teams worked in shifts, spending hours underground rescuing trapped workers and bringing them to the surface for treatment. The alien rescue teams focused on areas where their larger equipment could be more effective. Dr. Kevin found himself working closely with Dr. Yeltar, a Corvanis physician who specialized in treating gas poisoning. Despite the language barrier and biological differences, they developed an effective partnership. "Your species can work much longer in the toxic environment," Dr. Yeltar observed. "And your medical equipment is very advanced. These people would have died without your help." The breakthrough came on the 4th day when Tim's team reached the deepest level of the underground city. They found over 200 workers who had been trapped since the beginning of the disaster. Many were unconscious from gas poisoning, but they were still alive. "We need immediate medical evacuation," Tim called over his radio. "I've got a lot of people who need help right now." The combined human and alien rescue teams worked together to bring the survivors to the surface. Dr. Kevin and Dr. Yeltar worked side by side, using both human and alien medical techniques to save lives. By the end of the week, over 8,000 alien workers had been rescued from the underground city. The human teams had worked 72 hours straight, taking only short breaks to rest and change their equipment. Zeklon stood with Captain Lisa at the entrance to the mines, watching the last group of survivors being loaded into medical transport vehicles. The rocky-skinned alien had tears in his large eyes. "Your people saved my workers," he said to Lisa. "The legends said the Sol Phantoms were destroyers, but you brought life instead of death." Lisa put a hand on his shoulder. "We're not the same humans from your legends. We've learned that helping others is more important than conquering them." News of the rescue operation spread throughout the galaxy faster than the human ships could travel. Every alien civilization heard about the humans who had risked their lives to save strangers from a different species. War. Chief Krathel received detailed reports about the rescue mission, while his battle fleet was still preparing for possible conflict with the Sol Phantoms. The reports described humans working without rest to save alien lives, sharing their medical knowledge and asking for nothing in return. "This doesn't match the legends," Krathel said to his military advisors. "The ancient stories never mentioned Sol Phantoms acting with such compassion." Velthar was studying the rescue reports in his library on the Zephyrian homeworld. The old researcher had spent 50 years reading about Sol Phantom destruction and violence. But these humans had shown mercy, skill, and dedication to preserving life. "Perhaps the legends were wrong," Velthar said to himself. "Or perhaps these are simply different humans than the ones our ancestors knew." On Earth, President Mary Sullivan received Admiral Jake's report about the successful rescue mission. The news that humanity had saved thousands of alien lives was exactly what the diplomatic mission had hoped to achieve. "This is how we want to be remembered by other species," Mary told her cabinet. "Not as conquerors or destroyers, but as beings who value life and are willing to help others." Back on Corvanis, the mining city held a ceremony to honor the human rescue teams. Thousands of alien workers and their families gathered to thank the humans who had saved their lives. Zeklon spoke for all the survivors. "The old stories about your people spoke of fear and destruction, but you have given us a new story to tell our children. A story about courage, compassion, and hope." As the human ships prepared to continue their diplomatic mission, Lisa looked back at the mining world one last time. They had proven that actions were more powerful than ancient legends. The real test would be whether the rest of the galaxy would judge humans by their old myths or their new reality. 6 months had passed since the rescue operation on Corvanis, and the galaxy had watched humanity with growing curiosity rather than fear. The Grand Assembly, which happened only once every 100 years, was about to begin on the neutral world of Nexus Prime. Admiral Jake Morris stood on the bridge of the UNS Dakota as the human ceremonial fleet approached the assembly world. 43 different species had sent representatives to this historic gathering, and for the first time in galactic history, humans would be among them. Sensor readings show over 300 alien vessels in orbit around Nexus Prime, reported Lieutenant Danny Pierce. "I've never seen so many different ship designs in one place." Jake nodded as he watched the magnificent sight on the main screen. Ships of every shape and size floated in carefully organized formations around the beautiful blue-green world below. Some vessels looked like living creatures, others were geometric shapes that seemed to bend light around them. "Signal from the assembly station," Danny continued. "They're requesting that Dr. Sarah Davis transport down for the opening ceremony." Dr. Sarah Davis had been chosen as Earth's first galactic ambassador after the successful rescue mission. She had spent months learning about alien cultures and diplomatic protocols. Now she would represent all of humanity before the greatest gathering in galactic history. As Sarah's shuttle approached the massive space station that served as the assembly hall, she felt the weight of history on her shoulders. Everything that happened in the next few days would determine whether humanity became part of the galactic community or remained isolated on the edge of known space. The assembly hall was the most beautiful building Sarah had ever seen. It was built from a material that looked like crystal but felt warm to the touch. The main chamber was designed to accommodate every type of known life, with different atmospheric zones and gravity fields for different species. Sarah walked into the chamber and saw representatives from 43 civilizations arranged in a vast circle. Some delegates floated in zero-gravity bubbles, others sat on crystalline chairs, and a few moved around on mechanical platforms designed for their unique biology. At the center of the circle stood High Counselor Merthak, his blue, scales shimmering in the soft light. As the senior member of the assembly, he would guide the proceedings. "Welcome, beings of the galaxy," Merthak began, his voice translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. "We gather today to witness history. For the first time since the formation of this assembly, we consider adding a new member species to our community." All eyes turned to Sarah as she stepped forward to address the assembly. She had practiced this speech for months, but standing before so many different types of intelligent life was still overwhelming. "Honored delegates," Sarah began, "I stand before you as a representative of humanity. 6 months ago, you knew us, only through ancient legends that spoke of destruction and fear. Today, I hope to show you who we really are." Sarah activated a holographic display that showed images of modern human civilization. The presentation included art, music, science, and literature from throughout human history, but she also included the difficult parts: wars, environmental damage, and social conflicts. "We do not claim to be perfect," Sarah continued. "Humanity has made many mistakes throughout our history. We have fought wars, damaged our environment, and sometimes failed to help those in need. But we have also learned from these mistakes." The presentation shifted to show human achievements in medicine, environmental restoration, and peaceful cooperation. Sarah showed images of humans working together to solve problems, care for the sick, and explore the unknown. "The humans you see here represent our species today. We have chosen to emphasize cooperation over conflict, understanding over fear, and growth over stagnation." From his seat in the Corvanis delegation, Zeklon stood up to address the assembly. The mining supervisor who had witnessed the rescue operation had been chosen to represent his world's experience with humanity. 6 months ago, my people were trapped in poisoned tunnels beneath our world," Zeklon said. "Our own rescue teams could not reach them. We faced the loss of 8,000 lives. The humans came to our aid without being asked and without expecting payment. They worked for days in dangerous conditions to save people they had never met." Zeklon's voice carried emotion as he continued. "The ancient legends spoke of soul phantoms who brought destruction. These humans brought hope. They shared their medical knowledge with our doctors. They risked their lives to save ours. This is not the behavior of the monsters from our old stories." Other delegates began to speak about their interactions with humans. A Zephyrian scientist talked about the mathematical principles that humans had shared. A crystalline life form described human music that had moved them to tears. Each testimony painted a picture of humans as curious, compassionate, and creative beings, but not all the testimonies were positive. War Chief Krathel stood up to voice his concerns. "The rescue operation was admirable," Krathel admitted. "But the ancient legends warn us that soul phantoms can appear helpful when it serves their purposes. How do we know these humans will remain peaceful when their numbers grow and their needs expand?" Sarah had expected this question. "You don't have to trust our promises," she replied. "Judge us by our actions. We propose a formal partnership program where humans and aliens work together on shared projects. If we prove untrustworthy through our behavior, you can end the partnership at any time." Velthar, the old Zephyrian researcher, rose from his seat. "I have spent 50 years studying the soul phantom legends. These humans match the physical descriptions from our ancient stories, but their behavior is completely different. Perhaps the myths were based on a different group of humans, or perhaps they were distorted over thousands of years of retelling." The debate continued for hours as delegates shared their thoughts and concerns. Some species were eager to work with humans, while others remained cautious about the implications of accepting a new member into their community. Finally, High Counselor Merthak called for the formal vote. "The question before us is whether to accept humanity as a provisional member of the Galactic Assembly, with full membership to be considered after a 5-year evaluation period." The voting was done through a complex system that took into account the size and influence of each member species. Sarah watched nervously as the results were calculated. "The vote is 37 in favor, 6 opposed," Murthak announced. "Humanity is accepted as a provisional member of the Galactic Assembly." The chamber filled with various sounds of approval and celebration from the different species. Sarah felt tears in her eyes as she realized that humanity had just taken its first step toward joining a community of intelligent beings that spanned the galaxy. Over the following days, the Assembly worked out the details of humanity's new status. Earth would be allowed to establish embassies on key worlds throughout the galaxy. Human scientists would be invited to participate in joint research projects. Most importantly, humanity would have a voice in galactic affairs and access to the accumulated knowledge of 43 civilizations. The Corvanis delegation formally requested human assistance in developing new safety protocols for dangerous industrial operations. This became humanity's first official partnership agreement with an alien civilization. Captain Amy Rodriguez was chosen to establish the first permanent human embassy on Zephyria Prime. The UNS Liberty would remain in orbit as a diplomatic vessel and symbol of the new relationship between humanity and the galaxy. As the Grand Assembly came to an end, Sarah stood on the observation deck of the assembly station, looking out at the stars. In a few months, ships from Earth would begin regular travel to these distant worlds. Human scientists, doctors, teachers, and engineers would work alongside alien colleagues to solve problems and explore the universe. Back on Earth, President Mary Sullivan announced the formation of the Galactic Cooperation Initiative. The program would coordinate humanity's participation in galactic affairs and ensure that Earth's values of peace, cooperation, and scientific advancement would guide their interactions with alien species. Admiral Jake Morris received orders to expand the human fleet and begin regular diplomatic missions throughout the galaxy. The 12 ships that had started this journey would soon be joined by hundreds more as humanity took its place among the stars. On Corvanis, Zeklon returned to work in the mines, but now he helped train human engineers in alien industrial techniques. The crystals that had first connected his world to the Sol Phantom legends were now used in joint research projects between human and alien scientists. Velthar published a new book called Myths and Reality: The True Story of the Sol Phantoms. In it, he argued that the ancient legends were based on real encounters with early humans who had visited the galaxy thousands of years ago. But the stories had been distorted over time, turning exploration and cultural contact into tales of destruction and conquest. The book became popular throughout the galaxy and helped many species understand the difference between ancient myths and modern reality. Years later, children from dozens of different species would play together on space stations and colony worlds.